Good afternoon. I'm glad to be with you today. I'm Karen Eberly, Timbercrest chaplain. Gary Heisler asked if I would give my full bio, but I told him no. I have a delightful quote by Rainer Maria Rilke to start our time together. The quote says, "Now we welcome the new year, full of things that have never been." I'm going to read that again so you can think about it. Now we welcome the new year, full of things that have never been. This year will certainly bring us a host of things that have never been. Some wonderful and exciting, some unexpected and surprising, and some devastatingly sad. And we will continue to live in the fullness of life with all the joys and challenges that come in the midst of our living. Let's sing together from the blue hymnal, hymn number 70, Immortal, Invisible, God Only Wise. I'm grateful to have Becky Cordes playing the piano for us this afternoon. When I thought about the fact that maybe I could play, I realized I would need to stand here, step off the step, go down the steps, walk over, go up the steps, and come to the piano. And Becky's already there, and it's wonderful. So let's sing together. This afternoon, I would like to share a story with you about an epiphany. Well, one large epiphany and many small epiphanies along the way as well. Last September, over a year ago, Gary and I got a new to us car. Earlier in the summer, as I was traveling on State Road 114 back from Fort Wayne, our car was damaged by another driver not stopping properly at an intersection. Actually, he stopped properly, but went when I was still in the intersection, and things didn't work out so well. I was okay, more than a bit bruised, but all right overall. The car, however, was really crunched. Our insurance company and the body shop people deemed the car to be totaled, but still drivable. How is that even possible? That fact made our search for a new vehicle a certainty, but not an emergent necessity. Over the next few weeks, and I might say maybe even a month and a half or more, we talked about the specific guidelines we had for a new vehicle. We agreed we wanted something with fairly low mileage and good safety features, such as side airbags as well as the front standard airbags, a solid, heavier frame than our previous car. We also wanted a vehicle that was easy to climb into and get out of. In other words, one I didn't need a step stool to get into or a parachute to get out of. There was also the question of easy access to a good service department, which in turn would make all the difference in the lifetime of the vehicle. Of course, as with any major decision in a relationship, there are always pros and cons. Well, a great deal of discussion takes place after you make the list of pros and cons, and one person's pros and cons may be a bit different than another person's pros and cons. That was certainly true in our discussion about a new vehicle. We looked around for quite a bit, got references of different possibilities from our children because they love and care about us. And then finally, we decided where to begin. Once that decision was made, we needed to navigate the salespeople, the different cars that were suggested. No, we did not want a brand new car. Yes, we did want a used car, which, by the way, is called a new to you car. Used is not a descriptor anymore. We finally came to the time of test driving a couple of vehicles to see what worked best for us and what we could or would eliminate from the list. We both test drove 3 vehicles that fit our parameters, and amazingly, Gary and I came to the same conclusion. The salesperson gave us some private time to talk together, although he was close by. And before we left, they and he knew what we were thinking and what our decision was. There was appointment set for us to return to the dealership to do the necessary paperwork. We returned on the appointed day, finished the paperwork, signed our names on multiple lines numerous times. Finally, the vehicle was ours. The salesperson gave us a 10-minute rundown of the different features of the car, and then we were off, headed toward home. We were finally driving down the highway in our new to us car, only to realize we needed to begin the process of learning a much newer system of bells and whistles. How did we answer the hands-free phone? If it rings, what do we do? Could we really receive a text when we were driving and have a voice read it to us? And then could we verbally answer the text and have it sent? And where was the button to control the flow of the air? And how does one turn off a seat heater when it's a warm September day? Oh my. We successfully navigated over a series of months and eventually learned to maximize all the possibilities our vehicle had to offer. But it did take both of us working together And I'm not sure one of us can remember it all by ourselves. The next day, after our new to us car was parked in the garage, there was a tow truck that arrived at our house to take away our old car. I must admit, it was a bittersweet time for me. I had traveled many, many miles in that car to extend pastoral care to a variety of people in several different locations. As the car was towed away, it signaled the end of an era for me. That was a pretty big epiphany. One night, as I was driving home from Fort Wayne after dark, I had a unique experience. I was traveling along. It was dark outside. No light from oncoming cars, no extra farm or barnyard lights, no ambient moonlight from the sky. When my headlights switched from regular to bright on their own, I was simply amazed. Over 50 years ago, when I learned to drive a car, there was a round dimmer switch button on the left side of the floorboard of the car, which made a distinct click when you pressed it with your foot. You probably remember those days. The automatic bright lights made me wonder how the car senses when I, as the driver, needed more light on the road. Now, I'm certain there is a logical explanation that my son, who is an electrical engineer, could explain, and I might even be able to understand. I imagine his first words would be, "Well, Mom, there's a sensor," and he would be correct. However, the first time it happened to me, I was astounded. My vehicle knew I needed more light in my driving life. We are just over 2 weeks past the day with the shortest amount of daylight. Although it's still dark when I get up in the morning and the evening darkness comes way too early, I'm a person who needs light. More daylight hours, more sunshine, more blue sky, even a candle lit on the communion table. I'm always sad when we undecorate our Christmas tree. I enjoy the sparkle of the ornaments and the twinkle of the lights in the midst of the darkness of the season. How wonderfully amazing would it be if we all had bright lights sensors in our lives? If every time we needed an extra bit of light, an extra bit of understanding, an extra bit of clarity, what would happen if the light sensor in our lives gave us extra glimmers of light, extra glimmers of understanding, or extra glimmers of clarity, if they would automatically appear? Of course, it doesn't work that automatically in our lives. However, I believe that's the invitation of Epiphany, to seek to see things with more clarity, with more understanding, to shine a light on a situation or a relationship or a challenge or a disappointment. The definition of epiphany is a sudden realization or moment of understanding that allows someone to see a situation from a new and different perspective. I recently read a quote in The Friends of Silence by Brian Doyle from his poem, One Long River of Song. Doyle states, "You do your absolute best to find and hone and wield your divine gifts against the dark. You do your best to reach out tenderly, to touch and elevate as many people as you can reach. You bring your complete love and defiant courage and salty grace as to bear as much as you can. with all the attentiveness and humor you can muster. This is life, after all, a miracle, and we ought to pay fierce attention to every moment as much as possible. Doyle implores us to do our best to use our gifts to find the light, the clarity, the understanding, and to experience Epiphany daily. Some days, finding clarity, walking in the light, offering understanding is possible. And I'll confess, some days it seems impossible. There are some days when problems seem to have no solutions, emotions seem to weigh heavily, and light and clarity simply aren't available. It is in those dark moments I pay special attention to a bowl on my desk in my office here at Timbercrest. I brought the bowl with me in case you haven't seen it in my office. It's from One World Handcrafts that was here many years ago. It's coiled bamboo. I don't know if you can see the rings from where you are. It's coiled bamboo, coiled around and around again and again. The bowl has a very small point in the bottom as it sits, just a small circle in the bottom, like the last few coils. I got this bowl a long time ago when I started ministry at the Manchester Church of the Brethren. There were beginning days when things were pretty heavy. People didn't agree. There was a lot of controversy swirling around. People were ill. People needed to talk. People were dying. And I wasn't very equipped to carry all that was given to me. I saw this bowl and I thought, that looks like a bowl I could put all those things into. So that's what I started to do. Before I left work every day, I would put it all in the bowl. All the things people had shared, all the experiences people had had, all the emotions people felt and I felt about all that was going on. And each day, as all those things filled the bowl, I then would tip it to the edge and let it flow out, knowing God could handle it all, except for the little bit that remained in the bottom of the bowl. And that was mine to hold on to pray about, and to think about. I've invited many people to put their things in the bowl as well. And then when they leave my office, to metaphorically, well, if you look on the edges, some people have literally tipped the bowl. But to tip the bowl and let it all go out, let God hold on to it, and know that there's only a small piece of that we need to spread light to pray about, to think about. So we accept the invitation of Epiphany to bring hope, vision, imagination, and healing to an endangered and grieving world. We also understand it takes all of us to continue to reflect the light of Christ. For our closing hymn today, let's sing together This Little Light of Mine. Now, I first learned This Little Light of Mine at Camp Mac, church camp. Perhaps you learned it at church camp too, whatever your church camp was. And you learned the motions. You have to hold your finger up because that's your light. That's right. So I encourage you to feel free to do the motions that we all learned so many years ago. Our first verse will be This Little Light of Mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Our second verse will be Hide it under a bushel, no, I'm gonna let it shine. And our last verse, Everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine. Let's sing together. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. this little light of mine. I'm gonna let it shine, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Hide it under a bushel, no, I'm gonna let it shine. Hide it under a bushel, no, I'm gonna let it shine, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine. Everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. And now receive these words as you leave as a blessing to your evening and to your tomorrow. Creator God, in whom we live and move and have our being, grant us purity of heart and strength of purpose, that no selfish passion may hinder us from knowing your will, no weakness in doing it, but that in your light we may see clearly, and in your service we may find our perfect freedom through your Son, Jesus Christ. Amen. Now go and shine your light.